The art form of cashing in a Money in the Bank contract is something truly simple to perfect. Get a guy you want to put in the top spot, have another top guy in a vulnerable position, send in your burgeoning new star with the briefcase to cash in, and become champion. This formula has seen many a star elevated to the next level. Guys like Edge, CM Punk, and Jack Swagger. Okay, maybe not him. Even still though, my point remains the same. It's such a simple concept to nail, yet we've seen the bag or briefcase fumbled so many times now. So today I wanted to take a look back at what I and the general internet perceive as the worst Money in the Bank cash-ins ever. If you agree, disagree, or feel I forgot one, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Also, while you're going down there, it would help me out a ton if you consider dropping a like, and be sure to check out some of my other content if you like this video. I focus mainly on wrestling characters and storylines for videos, but I wanted to try some stuff like this to branch out. All that said, the first awful cash-in I want to talk about is also when WWE attempted to branch out on how the contract could be cashed in. For those of you who don't know, winning Money in the Bank grants the winner a briefcase with a contract that in it states that they may cash in on a championship at any time and place. This, by default, makes it practically a perfect device for heel performers. However, in the year 2012, everyone's favorite jort-wearing Superman picked up the contract. This was actually kind of exciting because, as mentioned, it was pretty much all heels who won the Money in the Bank aside from Punk, well, at least when he won it the first time. Many people thought, could this be how we finally get heel Cena?
No!
Yeah, that was never really gonna happen, and instead he opted to pre-announce his cash-in for Raw 1000, which was the first time someone actually did this sort of thing. Technically, Daniel Bryan said he was gonna cash in his contract at WrestleMania, but obviously that didn't happen. And well, not only did Cena absolutely not need to win Money in the Bank for this match to happen, but by pre-announcing it, this kind of defeated the point of the anywhere, anytime part of the contract. Then, to make matters worse, this became the first time in the contract's illustrious history that the person cashing in didn't win the championship. And it wasn't even because then WWE champion CM Punk beat him or anything. Instead, John actually won the match by DQ after the Big Show interfered. It was just bad. Like, even as a dumb teenager who was a massive CM Punk fan, I watched this and thought Cena was simply a moron. And above all else, that it was just a lame finish and not the best way to give the Money in the Bank contract its first loss. But hey, at least with him winning, we got this face. Another weird decision made with Money in the Bank came the year prior, when it was notable prick Alberto Del Rio's time as Mr. Money in the Bank. See, back in 2011, Vince had this weird obsession with Alberto, who, by the way, is a terrible human being, but a perfectly adequate performer. As such, from McMahon's eyes, it seemed fairly logical to use Money in the Bank to hopefully elevate the guy to that next level. The main issue, however, was the booking of it all. Out of the roster in 2011, it made a lot of sense for him to be the guy to win the contract, I guess. And generally speaking, he made the most sense, as once again, heels tend to thrive with the contract compared to faces. And while you can agree or disagree as to how talented he is, the real problem here was simply the champion he was set to cash in on. In 2011, CM Punk was a little over. People kind of liked him, and he may have spoken a promo that practically made him the biggest star of this era. To say Punk was the guy people wanted to see on top more than anybody else would be an understatement. And after Phil beat Cena, it felt like we were going to be seeing him hold on to that title for a good long time until Alberto cashed in. And simply put, nobody cared to see him as champion. Plus, he didn't exactly look very credible, as after Punk beat Cena in their title unification match, Knees McGee, aka Kevin Nash, decided to hit Punker with a jackknife before Alberto even came out. Simply put, he was just the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time. However, one guy that was very close to being in the right place at the right time is none other than Braun Strowman. You see, the former black sheep of the Wyatt family found incredible success in 2017 during his feud with Roman Reigns. He would do crazy things like flipping semis and ambulances, and people backstage as well as fans were super high on Braun. But despite his incredible success and rising popularity, his opportunity for the title would come a year later after capturing the Money in the Bank contract in 2018. This was pretty well after Braun had cooled down significantly. However, Braun pre-announced his cash-in just like Cena before him, specifically at Hell in a Cell. And while the match itself was largely fine, the finish, of course, was terrible, as Brock Lesnar simply interfered, causing a DQ. And while the cash-in was generally pretty bad because of it, what makes matters worse is that a guy like Braun using Money in the Bank is already kind of an odd choice, considering he served as a great monster level threat on his own. Like, the guy was booked strongly enough to credibly win titles as it was, which to see him lose his cash-in match was generally a little bit lame, even if it was pre-announced. And in doing this, they more or less let the Braun Strowman main eventership sail off into the distance despite how good the Monster Among Men was during that era. And while Big Man Braun didn't have the best time with the briefcase, I'd wager that the Lone Wolf Baron Corbin had an even worse reign and time as Mr. Money in the Bank. See, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that Baron was phenomenal in 2017 or that he was the guy who was the biggest missed opportunity with the briefcase, because he's not. But simply put, he was sort of dealt with a pretty bad hand. Notably, after working with John Cena, whom he didn't impress at the time, the guy lost a lot of credibility and favor with management. Cena even went as far as to say he shouldn't be considered as a world title contender, allegedly to Vince. And with that information making it to the boss among others in charge at the time, they say the rest is history. Baron cashing on Jinder Mahal after the modern day Maharaja lost to John Cena via disqualification, and well, because of this, Cena opted to retaliate by costing Corbin the match. It wasn't a good look, and overall the character of Baron Corbin would be damaged to a point we're still somewhat feeling the effects of nowadays. And while we're talking about characters who Cena more or less had a direct hand in ruining, let's move right on over to the intellectual savior of the masses, Damien Sandow. See, while modern day fans or WWE Zoomers might not know him all that well, Damien Sandow was a promising prospect with potential to push past the glass ceiling and into the main event scene back in 2013. He was rather talented, and his gimmick as the intellectual savior of the masses got over pretty big with fans. But after teaming up with a mustache-clad Cody Rhodes and seeing some success in the tag division as Team Rhodes Scholars, the pair would enter the titular ladder match where towards the end, Damien threw Rhodes from the ladder before capturing the briefcase himself. This was seemingly done because there were big plans for Sandow, and more than likely we would see the guy as a world champion before the year's end. However, this was also the era where after winning King of the Ring or Money in the Bank, management decided to book you to lose basically everything. As after this, he would lose to Rhodes following the pair falling out, and would even have his original briefcase chucked into the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, and don't worry, it wasn't just Cody he'd lose to. It was guys like R-Truth, Dolph Ziggler, and Santino Marella, you know, the real main event players. And while this was all pretty bad for Sandow, the real nail in the coffin came from his actual cash-in, which was done against John Cena, who at the time was suffering from an elbow injury. Despite both this and the fact that John had just endured a match against Alberto Del Rio at Hell in a Cell the night before, Sandow would go on to lose his cash-in. In the process, this would utterly obliterate his credibility, and despite how incredible Mizdow was, the guy would simply never recover from here and would fall into obscurity within just a few years. Speaking of falling into obscurity, there was a rather great chance of Nikki Cross doing the same exact thing during her stint as Nikki AS8, which if you don't remember was her new character introduced in the back half of 2021, where Nikki would essentially pose as a superhero similar to Molly Holly or the Hurricane. This character was a good concept all in all, but it was very clearly designed with a ceiling in mind and with the intention of being something for younger audiences to get behind. So for whatever reason, they decided that because the character was reasonably over with fans, that she would be the winner of the 2021 Women's Money in the Bank contract. Okay, cool, well, what are they gonna do? Oh, she cashed in on Charlotte and won the Raw Women's Championship? Unexpected, but I can get behind. She already lost it back to Charlotte. Mind you, I am being a bit cynical here, as her initial cash-in was rather neat. People were invested in this fresh character, and while some found it silly, this was not the way to treat her in my opinion. You see, this cash-in and general use of the Money in the Bank contract was seemingly done with the express purpose of giving Flair another title reign to enter ever closer to her father's record, which in my opinion is an extremely lame use of the contract and belittles the value of said contract significantly. However, what is arguably the most detrimental usage of the Money in the Bank contract came on November 8th, 2022, when after failing to cash in on the WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns on several occasions, and after the WWE basically booked themselves into a corner, Austin Theory cashed in his Money in the Bank contract on Seth Rollins for the United States Championship. Not only was the contract for the very first time used to cash in on a non-world title, but Theory would even lose his cash in on a beat up and battered Seth Rollins. Genuinely, this contract went from feeling like it had the potential to launch certain stars into the main event spot at one time, became a sad shell of what it formerly was. A device that in kayfabe was essentially a free world championship button now became something used to get a mid-card title match on Raw. More specifically, a title match that on paper was basically a free win, but in reality was one of the worst Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think is the worst Money in the Bank cash-in? Let me know in the comments down below. And hey ho, while you're headed down that way, it would help me out immeasurably if you consider dropping a like on this video, as it tells me and the YouTube algorithm that I'm doing something right with the content here on the channel. Also, if this is your first time around here on Dylightful and you liked what you saw, feel free to subscribe, as I currently try to put out about 2 videos a week here, and I think I might just have a few in the chamber ready to go that you might enjoy. For now though, I think I'm gonna dip, so as always, I hope you stay safe, and that was Dylightful.